Right.
remotely.
Everybody, I think it is 1:30, top of the time for us to get started. I'm Melissa Silvey. I'm the manager of technical assistance for the state of New Hampshire through Growth Partners LLC. I'm going to be your host today, which is not as good as Stephen Clark, who normally has this job. He's on vacation and he has a much better accent than I do. So I'm just going to keep letting folks gather in the waiting room and let them in. Excuse me. And we will get started momentarily. And you guys will just have to forgive me. I'm learning how to do the technology and admit people at the same time, as well as moving over to our facilitators. So if you bear with me, I will get us moving. All right. That's done. Cancel. Here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna bring up my agenda. Okay, we're gonna get started. I want to welcome everybody to the Engaging Young People in Prevention, Amplifying Youth Voices in New Hampshire. I want to welcome everybody that's new to our Zoom format. I'm going to go through just a little bit of housekeeping, and then I'm going to turn it over to our facilitators today. So in order to share in our housekeeping sort of way, you need to make sure that you have your microphone selected and that you have your speaker selected as same as system. You can turn off your video. Please turn off your sound if you're not sharing. And we'll go over how to share in just a second. So down below, you will see in Zoom that there is a place for you to do reactions. And that's where you would raise your hand. And since we have a panel today, that's going to be really critical that we use the raise hand feature. And then you're going to want to unmute yourself. I believe we have somebody that's able to call on folks as we see them raise their hand. And so that we can keep everybody sort of trying to be in line. This will be a little bit more of a challenge with Zoom, trying to make sure that we get everybody in order. So if we happen to not get you in order, please use the chat function and let us know that you have a question or you want to raise your hand and you haven't been seen. That's definitely the best way to go for us. So I'm going to turn this over to, I believe, let me just pull up our agenda. I apologize. I've been trying to print it for the last 20 minutes. And we're going to turn this over to Candace, who's going to introduce our adult presenters. We have 4 adult presenters that Candace will introduce you to. So Candace, I'm turning it over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Candace Tucker. I probably know most of you, but I work for the Bureau of Drug and Alcohol Services. And I will be reading our presenters. So I'll be reading 4 different bios. So bear with me. They're about a paragraph each, just so you can get to know our presenters. So our first is Zachary Porter, excuse me. He has held various positions with the Kingswood Youth Center since 2001. They currently serve as the executive director. They also work for the Appalachian Mountain Club. Zachary has a master's degree in organizational leadership, a bachelor's degree in business studies with minors in history and organizational leadership, as well as graduate certificates in leadership of nonprofit organizations and human resource management. Zachary has also completed a professional development certification program in the grant mentorship from UNH. They are certified in CPR, first aid, and as a YMCA lifeguard. Zachary is the president of the Rotary Club of Wolfboro and is the chair of 3 Rotary Club committees. Zachary is an Eagle Scout and serves as a Cub Scout pack leader, charter organization representative, and a merit badge counselor for Boy Scout Troop 165. They also sit on the Granite United Way Community Impact Committee.
Okay.
Is there
Yep,
another?
I'm getting there, Candace. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Um,
There we go. Our next presenter is going to be Jessica Jess Goff. She works as a community outreach and education coordinator at Seacoast Outright, a nonprofit organization that serves, supports, and advocates for LGBTQ plus youth in the Seacoast area of New Hampshire and beyond. As part of this role, she coordinates educational opportunities and events within the community that increase the visibility and inclusion of LGBTQ plus youth. She's also currently on the board of directors for 603 Equality, a budding statewide organization with the goal of advancing LGBTQ plus justice in the Granite State. Jessica holds her master's degree in social work from the University of New Hampshire and has worked within the nonprofit sector for the past 7 years, particularly with youth, unhoused folks, individuals and developmental disabilities, and the LGBTQ plus community. Born and raised in New Hampshire, she currently lives in Concord, New Hampshire with her partner and her cat Zuzu. In her spare time, she enjoys engaging in social justice actions around the state and participating in jigsaw puzzle competitions. That's fun. So our next presenter is Dana Mitchell. He has been with the Dover Police Department since 1977. He was a sworn officer for 26 years, rising to the rank of captain. He retired from his sworn position in 2003 and has remained with the DPT since then as a civilian employee coordinating the Dover Youth to Youth program, a large employment and advocacy student group. Dana speaks extensively on empowering youth and prevention activities and policy change. He has provided technical assistance and training on how to start up and strengthen youth empowerment programs and developing advocacy skills in youth to local, regional, and state programs throughout the U.S. Dana has presented many times at the National Prevention Network Conference, CADCA, the National Tobacco Conference, and various national alcohol conferences. Dana is a certified prevention specialist in New Hampshire and has a BS in criminal justice from Boston Northeastern University and a master's degree in public health administration from Golden Gate University of San Francisco. Good. I should have brought water with me. I don't think I've read this much since high school.
just one more.
And last but not least is Bob Thompson. He has worked in substance misuse prevention since 1997 and has been a certified prevention specialist in New Hampshire since 2006. Bob has served on the school board in the town he lives in of Jackson and is currently on the select board where he has served for 8 years. Bob also serves as an EMT in his community, and he has been married for 25 years and is a proud father of Kelly, Tonkery, Scott, Frank, and Jack Thompson. Bob served on the New Hampshire Certified Prevention Specialist Board of Directors from 2006 to 2014 and was its president from 2008 to 2013. Bob studied the science of behavioral analyst and school-wide positive behavioral interventions and supports during a 2-year leadership development program at the Neig School of Education, University of Connecticut. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But thank you to all of our presenters and welcome. You all have very varied experience and we're very happy to hear from you.
Great. I'm just gonna unshare my screen. And that would just be, how do I do that? Okay, well, that will be our background for now. Okay, so we have our panelists. I'm going to introduce Kimberly Wade, who's actually going to work with our panelists by asking them one question that we had come up with, excuse me, had come up with as a planning group. So Kimberly, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Melissa, and thank you everybody for joining us today. And I also want to thank our panelists for taking the time to provide their subject matter expertise to all of us. The way this is going to go is that we have a facilitated question to open up the discussion for each of the panels. So we'll be doing the adult panel first. If you have a question, please feel free to put it into the chat or raise your hand and unmute yourself. And then we're going to go into the youth panel once we're done with the adult discussion. So our first facilitated question for the adult panel is, what do you do to engage youth in prevention strategies? Of our 4 panelists, does anybody want to volunteer to start? Otherwise, I'm happy to call on someone. All right, I'm calling on you, Bob, because I know you.
Thanks. And so the short answer is listen for us, really. We want to make sure that we recognize there are some pretty significant differences between an adolescent brain and an adult brain. And what an adult brain comes up with as far as a bright idea is not necessarily one that resonates with an adolescent thinker. So, and we've gotten ourselves into trouble in the past by assuming that our suggestions are going to be resonating with a youth community when what we need to be doing is making sure we are authentic listeners to youth and hear what they want to do. And so if it's youth led and adult guided, we have a role about, well, we don't have funding for that, or let's think this through and figure out a way that this can work. And but at the same time, it needs to start with youth as drivers. They're the ones actually that are out there for the most part in a volunteer level of effort that need to be the ones embracing whatever the strategies are and whatever the events and ideas are that need to be implemented in a community. And it's not, we've found in the past that whatever we've tried to do is way more durable and much more sustainable when it comes out of the mind of somebody who it's actually targeting, rather than out of an adult mind. So I don't know. That's the longer, more drawn out answer, but it's first and foremost and always needs to come back to being able to listen to the youth voice.
Thank you, Bob. Really appreciate that. And Dana has volunteered to follow up with what they do to engage the youth.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Dana Mitchell, I coordinate Dover Youth to Youth. I have some students will be on the youth panel, so you'll get some insight from them a little bit later. So I agree with everything Bob said, and that's really absolutely true. To take things in a little bit different direction, it is important to create the opportunity. So you gotta create the situation that they can become involved in. So that puts a lot of pressure on the adults to, what are the resources? Who is going to be the advisor that's listening? Is there funding there? So and ideally a couple of advisors, if at all possible, in case the primary person gets sick or something like that, and then be prepared to lay out what the parameters are. How often can you meet, given your staff, presuming staff is going to meet with the students, which is pretty typical. What's the parameters that you're able to provide, and being upfront with the students about that. And then, so that a lot of that is sort of the administration of the program. It's that foundational piece that you're saying to them, we're going to meet once a week on Tuesdays because that's when we have people available, and here's where it'll meet, where we'll meet, and have a lot of those things in place. So that gives you the opportunity for that caring staff that wants to be supportive, that wants to help guide, coach. We kind of refer to the adults here as almost as coaches, the way that a coach in a baseball team that your kid might be in, teaches them, makes suggestions, guides them based on their experience, but the coach never takes a swing, never plays in the game. The students are the ones that have to go out and actually do it. So having a vision of how your organization and how your people are going to support the engagement is really critical. So kind of a little bit different angle on it that I would throw out there.
Thank you, Dana. And would one of the other two panelists like to unmute themselves and talk about how they're engaging their youth advocates?
I can go next. I'm
Thank you,
Zachary Porter, Kingswood Youth Center. I'm joined by one of our youth participants. I'm sharing a screen with Isabel, so you'll meet and hear from her later. Thank you for including us. Here at the Kingswood Youth Center, we do a little bit of everything. We do after school, school vacation, summer programs, individual mentoring, a food pantry, a free thrift store. And one of the wonderful things about our program is really anything that's positive and that's beneficial and meaningful to the teens and that's viable within our mission, it goes. So we can really focus on those things that meet the most pertinent, current, and emergent needs of the teens who we serve. In terms of substance use prevention, we kind of have two approaches. One is we do some really targeted programs that specifically provide information and tactics and related to dissuading substances. And then the other side of the coin that is just as important, if not more, is anytime the teens are engaged with us, they're in a supervised, safe environment, making good choices. So that's a win right there. And I would say the flexibility and agility we have in our program is huge in engaging teens. For example, just recently we had some participants published in a children's book for charity. So we were able to pivot and make a whole afternoon out of a field trip to go to a celebratory event over the other side of the lake in Guilford to honor those participants. So to have the resources and the structure to build in that agility, I think goes a long way in customizing the programs to the teens' interests as well as to emergent opportunities. Another major part of our strategy of engagement is a balance between structured programs and unstructured programs. So we have a lot of time that we've planned really cool, meaningful, valuable stuff for the teens. But then we have just as much, if not more time, that's really just devoted to positive peer engagement. So the teens are making their own choices within the context of what's available. And we know that that's a really important developmental need, and that means a lot to them, and they want and need that. So by offering both sides of that coin, we're almost able to barter with the teens to get engagement. You got your energy out. We had a lot of time with friends. Now we want to do some stuff together that's a little more structured. Then definitely giving the teens ownership of the programs is something we have the flexibility to do that increases engagement. One example of that was the other spring, we had a whole bunch of formal wear donated for for proms and semi-formal dances. And some teens said, we should have a prom here. And we adults are like, would that go well? It's hard for us to picture because we never did it before. But we said sure, and it ended up being one of our best events that we've ever hosted. And then definitely communication around rules, definitely having that flexibility to involve the group in conversations about rules, expectations, about what they want from the program, and really understanding why things are the way they are and accepting input as to how things could be, how things should be. And the last thing that I'll say that's one of my strategies for increasing engagement is a little bit of humility and making sure they know that we as adults and me, we're learning right beside them. The other day I led a progressive muscle relaxation exercise, and this was kind of in our mindfulness programs. And I made the point, this is something my therapist recommended to me, and I was kind of a little unsure. I was like, will that really work? And then I tried it out, and you know what, it did. So let's try it out. Same with we do a lot of prevention programs where we hear from people from different perspectives, people in the recovery field, people in recovery. And I make sure the teens know that we adults, we're learning, we're all in this community, we're all immersed in these realities, and we're learning right along beside them. So it's a pleasure to have the flexibility and the privilege to engage those strategies.
Thank you, Zachary. That was, I love all the great details you shared with the successes those youth have achieved so recently. Jess, would you like to follow up?
Sure. These are all really, really great points. I love what you said to Zachary about pro-social activities being prevention. I know at Seacoast Outright, we don't really do direct prevention work, if you will, but safe, supportive spaces are prevention. We know that when youth are supported and have those safe spaces, all sorts of outcomes improve, right? And when mental health is better, then prevention use or substance use goes down. Sorry, it's been a long week already. It's Monday. But yeah, so I think really, I love what everyone said about really engaging youth in the process. As adults, we often have an idea of what is going to be helpful or what we think would be good for youth, and then write it into a grant before we actually ask youth if it would be helpful. And then we go to actually carry it out and we're like, oh, they didn't want that. They're not going to do that because we didn't involve them, right? And so being able to engage youth in that. I think the other thing is really allowing youth to bring their full selves. Oftentimes programming is very siloed. And so it's, prevention work is here and work with LGBT youth is here and work with youth with mental health challenges is here. And they're all kind of in their own little bubbles. And people don't exist in little bubbles. They exist in the intersections. And so being able to have youth bring their full selves and make sure that spaces are competent and safe for all youth populations. Often we make some assumptions about youth who are going to show up, and being able to really respect all identities that youth have and really encourage that healthy self expression. I will say the other thing is that I think there is a generational shift in mindset around prevention work. Stay with me here. So I'm a young millennial, so I'm a little bit of the cusp. I can see all perspectives. And so what I found is that youth populations are a lot more harm reduction based. And most youth do not want to engage in an abstinence-based model. That isn't always the rule, but oftentimes youth will immediately disengage from an abstinence-based model. And so really being able to, when possible, engage in those harm reduction models, I think can be really, really critical to engaging with youth. But I'm really excited to hear what the youth who are here today have to say.
Thank you, Jess. Well, we do have about another 20 minutes with the adults. So if anybody has any questions, please put in the chat or raise your hand. While we're waiting for folks to come up with some questions or ideas. I do have one. So as we were talking about all these youth, it got me thinking, especially just when you were talking about the siloing. We kind of put youth all into one category, right? But they're really not. They're really very complex beings just like we are. And how do you know that you're hitting all these different little subgroups within the big scope of youth when you're trying to do your work? Because, I don't want to date myself, but back in high school, there was definitely cliques, right? There's definitely groups of people and people that identified themselves as certain categories. And I know that what I viewed as cliques growing up would not translate to the youth of today. So how are you identifying and engaging all these little subcultures and connecting them to prevention? Anybody want to unmute and run with it?
Well, I can tell you that data helps. Data helps a lot. And I think you're bringing up a good point too, because different subpopulations are at different levels of risk for substance misuse. So if we've got our fingers on a Burfus report or the YRBS reports, and we understand that we can do crosswalks between data and understand that LGBTQ plus communities are this many times at a higher risk to abuse substances. And then we can have a conversation about why that is. And if there are marginalized groups out there that aren't being allowed the same opportunities to be successful in a natural school setting, a natural community setting, and they're at risk for substance misuse as a result, that certainly justifies a targeted outreach to make sure that there's a plan that's inclusive of any individual or subgroup that could be at an increased risk. If you're, we have school groups. We have a lot of youth leadership through adventure groups in North Country schools, and they're down into the mid-state level as well. And they work best when they represent the entire student population. That's a tricky thing to do because kids do like to click up, as you said, Kimberly. But if there are 20% of our student population that has, a certain risk level, or they're at the poverty level, free and reduced lunch, all kinds of ways we can look at our student populations to make sure that that's that same level of representation in the group. We came up with data at one point up in one of our school districts that identified 15% of the students identifying as having had or wanted to have behavioral health services at some point in time. And so you would want a representative group to have that too, especially if it's a universal strategy. All of those things, if they're not taken into consideration, end up having a further risk of marginalizing already marginalized populations, because once again, here's something going on and I'm not included. I don't know if that helped or not, Kimberly, but that was
we're in a little bit different position than something. You have different types of groups here. So we are direct prevention. So the students that sign into our program are signing into it because I want to be engaged in that. So we have 4 teams of students. It's over 50 students altogether that meet at different times of the week based on age. They're creating media with a prevention message in it. They're doing they're at the State House for or against certain legislation. They're doing presentations in the schools. So it's very direct action kind of thing. And what I have found over the years is we attract a very diverse. We have the athletes, we have the kids that are into music, and the kids who are not at all athletic and aren't into anything else. And it's quite a range. And the real commonality that we found is it tends to attract the student that is dissatisfied with the way things are and is the type of personality that wants to change the world, that wants to change at least some little corner of the world. With offering that, we found that, organically really attracted a pretty diverse, what you don't attract is the kid who's I don't want to put my face on that. I don't want to take that I'm not ready to take that stance. But we have a, a very big group, and a lot of students out there are willing to do that and get, directly involved in prevention.
Thank you, Bob and Dana. Jess and Zachary, did you want to add anything to that? Otherwise, we can see if there's any other questions. I haven't seen any hands raised. And you can feel free to put it in the chat if you want as well.
Yeah, these are all really, really important points. I think that someone made a really good point about age groupings. When we say teen programming, a 13-year-old and a 19-year-old are radically different. And some programs try to do the smush, and there's lack of funding and lack of staffing and all of the things. And thinking about ways to break it up, because again, the way that 13-year-olds function is not the way 19-year-olds function. The other thing I think about is not only outreach to specific groups, but figuring out who comes in the door and then decides to leave. And I think that shows us kind of who hasn't been adequately welcomed into a space or who doesn't feel as safe. I think sometimes we do outreach and we're like, our programs welcome everyone. And that statement isn't enough because we put it everywhere. And what does that mean? So being able to kind of state like our programs are inclusive and friendly to LGBT folks, to BIPOC folks, to folks with disabilities, and being able to name what those things are and then actually do it in practice, because I've found that some services will say they're inclusive and then youth go and it's not inclusive, and it's almost worse than not inviting youth into the space at all. So making sure if you're inviting youth and saying you're safe, that you are going to be safe, and you're not kind of causing additional harm, and kind of having that youth put off help seeking in the future because they've had a negative experience. So really just being intentional about that, I think can be helpful.
Thank you. Zachary, did you want to add anything?
Sure, I'll just add that definitely one of our challenges here, going really back to the beginning when we were founded about 25 years ago, is just, I guess, debunking a misconception that we are intended for a narrow target audience in terms of particular demographics. And we've worked really hard to say, no, our target audience is anyone in the age group, in the geographic area who can benefit from us, and that's a self-selection. And I definitely feel like we've achieved a lot of diversity in terms of participants with different interests and different backgrounds. And I definitely feel like a lot of how we get our name out there is word of mouth. So teens bringing their friends. So I feel like that once we start to get different individuals in the door, it compounds from there, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that word of mouth is the biggest, connector, right? A positive experience lends to them bringing their friends along with them. We're going to wrap this up with one last question. This was specified for Jess. Jess, do you get any pushback on harm reduction work in your area where you were talking about that harm reduction piece?
That's a really great question. Again, we don't do that direct prevention work. It's more of kind of a philosophy that we bring to the work that I think comes in when we're talking about not only substance use, but also sexual health, and also school engagement and all of the things that are harm reduction. So I would say not as much. I also like to think of inclusion as a harm reduction approach. Everybody in a space isn't necessarily going to be on board, but harm reduction is making sure that everyone is able to at least engage in supportive behaviors regardless of what they believe. So I guess this harm reduction approach kind of philosophy goes a little bit bigger, but I would love to hear what other folks have found. I know some funding, specifically state and federal funding, does not love a harm reduction approach in the same way that we might all philosophically align with that.
Oh, and that is true, but I think if anybody has had an opportunity to see the new strategic plan from SAMHSA, they are starting to integrate harm reduction. So I do think that that's a very exciting concept that they're starting to embrace. That honestly, I think probably at the ground level, people haven't been embracing for quite some time, right? It's just getting caught up. Bob, Dana, or Zachary, did you want to add on to anything about possibly doing any harm reduction with your youth, or what their perceptions of harm reduction are versus those of adults?
Well, I would say that some of our strategies have changed over the years, and just like attitudes and knowledge and understanding research and what it has to share has changed our way of thinking. You know, there used to be a zero tolerance focus on a lot of the prevention work, and we do find that we end up excluding a lot of individuals and subgroups where that's just not realistic for somebody at this point in time. And you can look at adult addicts and see the same thing. It's just they're not ready. So let's reduce the harm. Let's talk about ways that we can do that. And so it's a good point, and it's a controversial point, because if you've got a school-sponsored group that has a harm reduction strategy that they're operating under, that's not always going to square with the school board or a superintendent or a principal. So it's a complicated issue, but always working in some way, shape, or form to get somebody to a place where they're totally confident that they can enjoy life and all it has to offer by being themselves, by being their sober, sound of mind selves. And that's the end goal. And it's always not something that we can realize on week 2 of a relationship, but so it's tricky, because a lot of times schools are our funders, in addition to SAMHSA or other organizations that may not embrace the same harm reduction strategy. But
Thank you, Bob. And Dana, it looked like you were going to share as well.
I was gonna say, a lot of it is situational, so you could say that vaping is better than smoking cigarettes, but where you have that conversation, they do a lot of vaping prevention in the 4th grade, and you're probably not going to tell a 4th grader, well, vaping's better than cigarettes, because that's, so so we end up having those kinds of conversations about, well, yeah, if you're talking to your parent, that they might be better off using Zine or something else besides Marlboros. But when you're talking to younger kids, say in the elementary school, it's you have to be careful what your message is.
Very true. And I think that goes back to Jess's point about being mindful of the age of the audience that you're speaking to, right? Talking to a 13-year-old's not the same as talking to a 19-year-old about substances and substance use. Zachary, did you have any last comments you wanted to add on this topic before we wrap up this section of our community practice?
Yeah, all I'll add quickly is I think the teens definitely have a really good understanding, the teens we work with, of what our community is grappling with and what individuals and families in our community grapple with. So I definitely think including the harm reduction paradigm into discussions at the very least definitely lends some credibility and demonstrates some understanding of reality, which I certainly see going a long way.
And Jess, did you want to say that out loud, what you just typed into the?
Sure. Again, I always like to think about, and I think this isn't always brought up in spaces, that we want to remove substance use, but we aren't always thinking about the why of substance use. And for some youth, especially who are struggling with really severe mental health struggles, substance use is keeping them alive, which is hard to kind of conceptualize, but in many ways it can be that coping strategy, and it's a dangerous coping strategy, and it is not the coping strategy we want them to have, but it is a coping strategy. And so really making sure that youth have those other coping strategies in place, especially if there's an abstinence-based model, to say like, okay, you're not able to do this, but here are some other things that we can do. Otherwise, we're just removing a coping strategy. And really that I think can be dangerous for many youth. So just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not often in prevention-based spaces, so I always like to embed that in the conversation.
Well, and I think that you bring up a valid point that a lot of our clinicians work with is helping those youth identify unhealthy coping strategies and then transitioning them into healthy coping strategies, right? Because ideally we want them to have these skills for their life, not just for these moments of time. And so we want to send them on a path where they're making healthy and positive choices that will last them a lifetime. I would like to thank all the adult panelists for sharing your experience and expertise. We really appreciate you letting us pick your brain. Thank you, Jess, Bob, Dana, and Zachary. And now we're going to turn it over back to Candace to do the bios of our youth that we're all very excited to hear from. And then we will be following up with them and doing a Q&A with them as well.
Hi, everybody. We don't have full bios to read this time, so I'm just going to say our youth's name and what part of our community they're from. And if you all could just give a little wave. And then I'm going to ask that when you guys start to speak, you let us know what grade and school you're from, if you don't mind. And I will only be introducing you by your first names because some of you have some very interesting last names, and I know I'm going to say them wrong. So please bear with me. So in the North Country, we have Lane, Bailey, Owen, and Jill. From Dover, we have Jane, Mia, and Danny. And then from Wolfboro, we have Isabella. So.
And Candace, Danny started not feeling well, so
Okay.
she had to leave, but you still have Mia and Jane.
Wonderful.
And
Thank
North
you.
Country doesn't get out of school until 2:20, I believe. So they'll be joining us between 2:15 and 2:20.
All right. Well, that's our panelists, and you'll hear a little more from them when they start speaking. But thank you all for being here, and we're really excited to hear from you.
And I need to pull up the slide that has the question for you. So bear with me.
While we're waiting for the question, do any of you youth wish to unmute and give a little bit more details about who you are? That would be great, so we have a better idea of who you are, what you like.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Isabel. I'm in 11th grade and I go to Kingswood. Not proud of that, but what can you do?
We're so glad you could be with us today. Anybody else want to unmute and introduce?
Hi, I'm Jane Shincius. I'm a junior from Dover High School, and I'm a member of Dover Youth. Sorry, there's a little bit of echo in our room, but we're fixing it. Okay, all right. But I'm Jane. I'm a junior from Dover High School. I'm a member of Dover Youth.
And I'm Mia. I'm a senior at Dover High School, and I'm also a member of Youth to Youth.
Wonderful. Thank you all. So the facilitated question we're going to start with is, what can adults do to increase youth's desire to be engaged? And I don't know who wants to start.
Hi, sorry. We can start off. So the way that Youth to Youth works, we have a knowledge skills action model. And so basically the way that we put that into action, and I mean, as Mitch said, I know that we have a kind of diverse group of programs here. We have different diverse ways that youth are being used in different programs. But in Youth to Youth, the way that this works is we make sure that we're developing skills. We're teaching students about the different societal problems that they're going to be talking about. We're making sure we're giving them the facts. And then only after we do all of that can they take action. And after this training has happened, usually our youth tend to be our youth tend to be more independent in the ways that they can take action. So for example, hang on, we've got some displays. I don't know if you guys can see these, but these are two different products that we've taken action on. One is the Ego Brunch in a Jar product, and the other is the Finding NEPA project. And these were both items that we took action on as part of our high-risk products campaign. Thank you,
You're
Mia.
welcome.
My brain's still like fuzzy from getting out of school and everything. But basically why these products in particular are special is the way that we took action directly in our community is by reaching out to the makers of these products. So in the case of the Finding NEPA product, we reached out to Concord Craft Brewing Company. We talked about exactly why these products were harmful in our consideration, exactly what our issues were, and these letters were written by youth. This also happened with Ego, where we reached out to both Kellanova, the maker of Ego, as well as Sugarlands Distilling Company, the brand that they're partnering with to make this this liquor, I suppose. And again, our students wrote these letters. I also see that we have our Mountain Dew, the hard Mountain Dew product. We reached out to Mountain Dew, did a very similar thing, a letter campaign, where our students were able to write those letters based on the knowledge that they had gained about the topic and the skills that they had learned with taking action and trying to eloquently state their position on an issue. And then we also met with the New Hampshire Liquor Commission, and it's been confirmed that the Finding NEPA product has been taken off the shelves and the Mountain Dew product will never come into New Hampshire.
Wow, that's some amazing advocacy work. Great job, guys.
Of course. Thank you.
You're welcome. Isabel, did you want to share anything about some of the activities or things that you're doing that make you feel engaged, that help you feel like you're part of? Yeah.
Well, I guess I can, give me a sec. Right. I don't know how to start with this. Well, I take part in Kingswood Youth Center, and I have some projects at home that they're not related to my home life. They're like, I don't want to describe that right now, but hopefully for the Rotary Club, there's a speech contest. I don't know if you heard of it. There's a speech contest. I'm deciding try to like win, but also like spread a message about safe spaces, because like Kingswood Youth Center is kind of like one of my safe spaces. You know, it's a place where I can just like have people who I'm friends with, and yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Can you
Yeah.
elaborate more about like what do they do to make it feel safe for you, to make you feel welcomed, that you could replicate, for youth in other areas?
Well, I don't know. There's just this like aura to this place I enjoy. It feels like a home. Like it
Nice.
feels like a home.
So it feels homey to you. You feel comfortable and that you could be yourself.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's
I
good.
know a lot of people here, and I've heard it's been like that before I came as well. So, you really get to know people when you come here for like 2 years.
Well, and they get to know you too, right? And they get
Yeah.
to support you and understand what your likes and dislikes are. So it's nice. It's reciprocal.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
they do understand.
So
Yeah.
let's ask another question. Who are some of the most influential adults in your life?
Well, one of them is right here. I think you know who they are. Come on, come here. Don't be shy. Yeah. Thanks. They're definitely one of them. Influential adults in my life. Well, I have to count people in my life, not people who are online. So, definitely Zach and Mara are definitely very influential. They work at KYC and they're really cool.
Nice.
Other than that, I don't really have any older people in my life, which is, I think that's why I come to KYC. These people are inspiring me. Like aside from my mom, which well, you know, we're not always on good terms. It depends, but hey, at least I have someone who's able to care for me. Well, you know, increase in engagement. I know that's a question. I don't think we're there yet, but we're almost there.
And
Anything else? Oh, there is one person I forgot to mention. Have you heard of someone named Eric? I don't know their last name, Zach.
Eric Moran, do you remember where he works?
Eric Moran. They work at White Horse Recovery Center in, I think, Ossipee?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, you do know them. Okay. Yeah.
sounds like you got some great adults
Yeah.
around you. That's nice.
Cool.
And our Dover youth, do you have any influential adults that you want to talk about and why they might influence you?
Yeah, I can go first. That's
Yeah, of
okay.
course.
I would probably say, probably my dad. He served 38 years in the Air Force, so that's pretty influential. And then also someone who we have come in and talk with us, Senator David Waters. He's very influential as well. He kind of helped me like get to know the legislative process and that kind of things. What about you?
Well, I don't want to be cliche, but Mitch, he's right
Yeah.
here. I mean, Mitch kind of talked about this earlier, but Youth to Youth is a program that tends to draw in people who already want to make a change and just like haven't possibly been given the space to do that. And so prior to being introduced to Youth, I had all of this energy that I was just like dying to put somewhere. You know, I wanted to make a difference in the world. And I think that a lot of programs just don't take youth action seriously enough. And I don't think they take youth seriously enough. But I think that Mitch's philosophy is just completely different because I think that Mitch genuinely treats youth as equals, right? I mean, obviously there's training that has to happen, and he's very good with teaching students how to be successful in the action that he wants to take. But it's very much so a question of, okay, what do you guys see as problems and how do you want to take action on these problems, rather than here are our action items, here are what grants require from us, this is what you are going to do. And so I think that by offering that sort of environment for me, by offering this sort of program where he respects youth as the powerful tool for change and the radical force that they are, I think is incredibly influential.
Yeah, Youth to Youth makes it very, very easy to be connected and engaged in not even just like community advocacy, but also like the legislative process and that kind of thing as well.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate hearing all that wonderful detail and all the great adults that you have in your life. I was just informed that the North Country students are here, so I don't know if they would like to unmute themselves and introduce themselves, and then also they can answer the question about who are the influential adults in their life.
Hi folks, how are you? I'm Matt Saladino. I'm a school counselor in Gore Middle High School. I've got 4 of our freshmen who are going to be part of our youth leadership team. I'll let them introduce themselves. And the question is, who are the influential adults in their life? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, start with Lane.
Hi, my name is Lane Wakefield, and the influential adults in my life are most of my parents and other kids' parents, because I have a bond with them, you know, when I hang out with my friends and stuff. And the teachers around here, like Mrs. Hub, you know, he's really influential with me. And yeah.
Matt, can we have them get a little closer to the mic?
Sure.
Thank you.
We're in my office, which used to be a closet a long time ago. So I think I'll try and move the mic a little closer to them. Then you guys will just be there. Okay.
I'm Bailey, and the most influential people to me are probably Mr. Saladino and my father, both like incredible role models for me, and both do really important things that I want to also, I strive to do when I'm older as well.
Is that better? Can you hear them better?
They're a bit soft spoken for young people.
Yeah, they can use their outdoor voice if they
Yes.
want.
Use your outdoor voice.
My name is Owen, and I feel like the influential people in my life would be my parents, probably the teachers here at the school. I'm pretty close with most of them because we have a small school. I get to know them, and a lot of people here, like Mr. Saladino, help me with sports and other activities that I do.
Jill, I think the most role models in my life are definitely my parents and the teachers and Mr. Saladino. I've been with them basically my whole life.
I didn't tell them to say that, by the way. I think I'll just jump in for a quick second. I mean, I think what they're saying is, we're pretty lucky. We go to our school is 6 through 12. We have 230 kids in the whole building. We get them when they're 12 and they leave when they're 18. So, a lot of our teachers, they're not just teachers, they're coaches, they're coaches, mentors, advisors. They really have an opportunity to spend a lot of time with our staff outside of the classroom. And I do think that's one of the best things about our school.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I think it really does illustrate the importance of that trusted adult in a youth's life, and also how influential parents are, because so many of you did mention your parents, how we're still a source for you for information. I'm going to move on to the next question I have, and please feel free to put questions in the chat or unmute if you have a question for the youth. But I have one that I think is of particular interest, at least for the planning committee for this community practice. They want to know what type of presence do you think prevention efforts have on social media, and how could they be best coordinated?
Is that going to these guys?
It's going to any youth that feels like they want to answer that and could take turns.
We can answer that.
Yeah.
Dover's going to start, it sounds like.
So, Dover Youth to Youth has been trying to sort of pull along with social media. It's not something that we're traditionally particularly interested in, but I think that, again, just to restate my point, allowing youth to decide what that media looks like is incredibly important, because I feel like the moment adults start trying to talk down to youth, the moment that adults start trying to like imitate the spaces that they're seeing on social media, it just becomes, I mean, I'm sure you guys like, the word like cringy, it's just like, it's uncomfortable, because I think that when you see adults who are trying to like talk down to youth to make their what they're trying to say to youth attractive, it just turns into white noise, because we don't feel respected, we don't feel heard, and ultimately it just undermines your entire point. So I think allowing youth to kind of be the spokesperson for that message and create that media is really important.
And the youth are going to know like what is actually like happening on social media. They're going to know like what the trend is, and when adults like try and copy trends, it can feel very condescending.
I agree.
Those are great observations. Any other youth want to share what they feel about social media? And I would also say, if you guys want to let us know what social media you utilize the most, that would be helpful as well.
Can I go next?
Of course.
As someone who uses social media way more than she should, Yep, that's definitely social media. I'd say that it can be dangerous if you use it too much or if you put too much comfort into social media. It's a common misconception that social media is like a safe space and it's a place where everyone gets along or it's a community because there are real people behind those screens. I mean sometimes there's bots, but like most of the time, there's like real people behind the screen. And the thing is that people's home life I think is different from their internet life sometimes, except if they don't really have a life and they just decide to go on the internet for their whole life. It's not good to be terminally online. It can be good, but like it's not healthy. Like even if you like take a walk every 2 seconds being on the internet, you're still gonna be unhealthy because you're exposing yourself to so much. And yeah, it's complicated for me because I use my computer a lot, but I'm not really on the internet per se. I might watch like a video by someone, like, I might watch some Scott the Woz, but like, I'm not like on it constantly, even if I am. I'm mostly an outcast, but I want to kind of hear what everyone else has to say.
We,
It's
we can,
dangerous.
I can have these guys talk about what social media they use most often.
I feel like Instagram and Snapchat are definitely the top two, and TikTok is obviously number one across probably everyone here. But in my opinion, I use Snapchat and Instagram the most.
I tend to use like Snapchat and YouTube. Those are my two top social media platforms, and that's about it. I would use Instagram and TikTok mostly for all of my social media use. I use Snapchat sometimes as well.
I only use YouTube because that's the only thing I'm allowed to have.
What was the first part of your question? Regarding social media and prevention?
Yes, we were trying to figure out, like, for prevention messaging purposes, using social media to reach the youth, what would be an effective way of combining that? And I also think that they brought up a lot of good points, is that just because you're online doesn't mean you're necessarily engaged in social media. You might be using some of the features that the internet has to offer.
Yeah. May I add something?
Sure.
I think prevention can be hard because I feel like the internet can be kind of an addiction. Like it's not fatal, but like sometimes you rely on the internet a bit too much, so it's hard to get used to. Especially if your life is like pretty mundane like mine. It can get hard to get used to not using the internet constantly.
Do you think it can be used as a tool for prevention sometimes?
I guess. Thing about the internet is you can hear from anyone, so you can hear anyone's views on prevention. For prevention in general, this could be another one of its problems because the internet itself can be considered a drug if you want to be serious. You want to be that like technical, yeah, internet is kind of like a drug. Sorry, my speech sounds a bit jumbled. I'm not used to speaking in big groups.
Well, we appreciate you being here and sharing your insight. It's been very helpful.
Oh, thanks.
So let me ask another question. What's the biggest barrier that prevent youth from getting involved in prevention strategies? And how can adults help remove those barriers? So I know you're all gauged in different levels of working in prevention. Like what attracted you to it, and what's preventing some of your peers from wanting to be a part of prevention work?
Okay, so I actually have a lot of feelings on this because Dover High School is a very large school, and so we hear a lot of different sort of opinions on our work. And I think that alienation is a huge problem among youth because, I mean, you were talking about it earlier. Is it Kimberly? All right, you were talking about it earlier, Kimberly. it's one of those situations where you've kind of got these cliques, and some of these cliques tend to use substances or tend to think a different way than you. And so when they see messaging that is countering the industries that are targeting them, I think it tends to be an immediate reaction of like pushing that away. And so I think it's really important to be specific that you don't hate them, you love them, and you want them to be safe and make sure that they're being kind to their bodies. You're sharing information about a group of people that wants their money. And you're sort of, I think the best way to attack it is by sort of a counter advertising approach, right? So you're taking this product that is generally accepted and you're countering the messages that those youth have been seeing their entire lives. And I think that that's really the most powerful and potent way to get that information out.
Yeah, because I know people will get extremely like defensive whenever you like call their habits into question, like, oh my God, like, no, it's fine. So I feel like a counter advertising approach that exposes that like your money is getting taken away from you will definitely be way more effective than being like, you're gonna like die because you're gonna vape.
Mm-hmm.
That also brings into play that like long-term like consequence, because teens obviously don't care about like what's going to happen to them in 50 years. So if you say, you know, when you're 60 years old, you might have like a lung disease, they're gonna be like, then I'll deal with that when I'm 60 years old. So health consequences are usually not the way to get people engaged and, you know, angry about it.
I will also say, sorry, real quick, I don't want to take up the whole dialogue here. I tend to be a talker.
You want yapper.
But I definitely say, as much as you can try to reward youth with food and with fun activities, and as much as that can be a great motivator for those who are already interested, I would recommend being cautious to using this method, because typically what you're gonna see is you're gonna see two factions sort of start to rise up. It's going to be the group of people that wants to do something and is like working hard until they get that break to have food. And then you're going to see the group of people that is there for the food, does not do any work, and then is like only engaged in that fun activity or food, which is fine. It's just depending on the type of group that you have. I'd say that it's definitely something that's tricky, and you don't want your only point of hey, you should join this group to be, oh, you get to eat food, or sometimes when we have a presentation you get to skip out on school. I think it's definitely a slippery slope.
Kim, we can jump in as well.
That would be great.
I know as a freshman, I cannot drive, so that would be not be able to go anywhere.
Transportation is something that we talk about a lot, just in terms of, you know, we have, you know, freshmen or sophomores, eighth graders maybe that want to be involved in prevention activities or community service activities, and the transportation piece is difficult. Years ago, we had grant money that provided a bus until 4:30, and we lost that. And so, you know, if kids don't have transportation, that's a challenging piece.
I think that the lack of interest for a lot of kids can also be a big problem, because a lot of people don't have the motivation to go outside of the box and do anything different than just the normal go home after school, do homework, and then like whatever. It's just the lack of individuality, and yeah.
I think it's a fact of like being shy and not wanting to speak up about what you want to do, because some people might feel interested in doing something after school activities, they just don't want to, or they're shy, you know, and it's like, yeah.
The prevention piece here too, years ago, before COVID, we had a really strong youth leadership team at our school, and we're just now this year or late last year, early into this year, getting in the process of rebuilding it. You know, we've had a lot more success doing school and community activities, you know, on a Saturday night, you know, whether it's hosting dances or doing a community service event, you know, something along those lines. We'll rent big inflatable obstacle courses and have a community night, and then invite you know, the community in for that. So those things are really good. We've had a lot of success doing that. I think sometimes kids just they hear the drug and alcohol prevention stuff so much that, you know, they're not interested because they're hit with it all the time.
And we know alternative activities, especially ones that are chem-free, can really help youth and families see that they can have a good time without needing, you know, substances involved.
Yeah.
And it sounds like go ahead, I'm sorry.
We've done a lot of those over the years. We do a night ski trip with our school. We're going to a UNH hockey game in March, and the school is really supportive. Like transportation for those events, they give us a bus, they give us a driver. We don't have to pay for that. And we have prevention money that pays for students' tickets and things like that. So that part is great. You know, putting on those events, and a lot of those are student-led, student-driven. You know, I get their ideas. What is it you guys want to do? And then we make it happen. So yeah, I'm with you. Those pieces are great.
Well, and also we know sometimes with socioeconomics, cost can be a barrier in some of these activities because they're provided for free, allow families to do things together that they might not otherwise have the means themselves to fund, right? So it's nice to provide that to families. And we did get a question in the chat for Dover. They said they're curious what advice you have for new coalition or groups starting out on how to engage youth.
Well, this is definitely a good question for Mitch. But I will say we do have an entire webinar that we could give on this. And then in terms of just stuff that I would prioritize as a youth, definitely communication is big. So you want to make sure that you're sending out weekly emails with all the details about current presentations. You want both youth and adults on this email chain. Specifically, you want to make sure that everyone's parents are involved. That's super important. And then also, I mean, Mia and I are both honors and AP students. And we're very heavily involved with sports. We've got a million different extracurriculars, and yet still Youth to Youth maintains its priority in our lives because it's a consistent meeting, right? So it's not like, oh, we're gonna have like 1 or 2 meetings a month. We'll like text you a few days before. No, it's something where we have a rigid schedule. It's every single Monday, same time, same place. And it's not something that's going to be, you're ever going to be just sitting around waiting. Yeah. It's a consistent involvement, making sure that there is at least a project for every member of your team to be working on. And if that means that you're breaking up a group of like 6th graders and then having a group of high schoolers. I mean, with Youth to Youth, we have 4 separate teams for all of our age groups. That's I think a good strategy, because then you can have different meetings, prioritizing different projects, and if need be, you can have some of those older students come and mentor for the younger students without interfering with other projects on their pipeline. Yeah. Mitch, do you have something to add?
I'd still also add in that we have, depending where you are in New Hampshire, but this group's pretty mobile, and we've gone to schools and done a presentation in the school that's trying to start a program. One of the big things one of the big hurdles is if you were starting a basketball team, everyone would know, okay, if I join this group, I know what I'll be doing. I'll be doing basketball. But if you suddenly say, I'm going to do this youth empowerment group or youth advocacy group, no one really knows what am I getting into if I sign up for that? I don't understand that. So one of the hurdles is getting over that. You're starting the group, you've got all your resources lined up, and then it's, you go to recruit, and it's like, if students don't know what they're getting themselves into, they tend to kind of avoid it a little bit. So we can help you with that, some of that. We've had small groups of our students go and actually give a presentation to a middle school. Now, we just did that in Somersworth and presented to the whole middle school to give them an idea of, okay, if I join, this is what I would be doing. Basically describing our program, examples of projects, how it works, what some ideas of what you might be doing if you join. So now the goal is to kind of get over that hurdle of, oh, okay, I see what they do. I don't want any part of that, or, oh, that sounds great. I want to be a part of a program like that. There'll be people sitting there that are like Jane with all this pent up energy and want and says, well, that's for me, and I'll sign up for that.
I'll just jump in with that piece as well. One thing we've had a lot of success with is working with New Hampshire Teen Institute. They run a middle school leadership program called Leaders in Prevention. It's a weekend program where they focus on improving school climate, drug and alcohol prevention, and building leadership skills. So we've had a lot of success that we send kids every year. And if you're a school and you're just kind of getting a new leadership group together, a new coalition group, going to a middle school conference like that, it's 2.5 days. And while they're there, they work as a team to come up with a community action project. Something like that could be a really good way to jumpstart their group.
Thank you. And I do believe we have some Team Institute folks on the call here on the community practice if they want to do a quick plug for their one that'll be coming up in the springtime. Am I right, Marissa, or am I off on my calendar?
No, I would love to talk about our programs, and if anyone is interested, please reach out to me. So our leadership and prevention program that Matt was just speaking of is our middle school program. Teams of middle school students come with 2 adult advisors from a school or a community coalition or like a boys and girls club, and they come for a weekend of exploring those topics of school climate in middle school. So we talk about bullying, we talk about diversity, we talk about substance misuse, we talk about friendship. We talk about different ways to get messages across and what are the things that we can do to make change in our community. So the youth really get to take the lead in talking about what they're seeing in their communities and what they would like to either improve or change. And they go through an action planning process as a team, and they go back to their school or community with a plan that they can put in place. So it's a really fantastic 2.5 days. A couple of people on this call have been there, and it really is wonderful. We have adult and youth facilitators that are working with them. So we're really trying to bridge that that age divide and make sure that the adults that are there are really letting the youth take the lead. And especially for middle school students, that is not the norm. So it may be one of the first or very early times that they get that experience. We're currently full in March. We do have space in February, but that's only happening in like a week and a half. So it would take some work to do to get a team there, but we could do it. We've done it before. Our other program, which is happening in the summer and is our flagship program, the program we started with, which some of the people on this call have also been to, either as participants or as staff members, is our summer leadership program. And that is for high school students. So anyone who's currently a high school student is eligible to register. We have lots of scholarship opportunities available. We have not had anybody be turned away scholarship-wise. We've been able to help everybody get a scholarship over the past, I'd say 5 or so years. So we really work hard to make sure that we have funding available. And that one is a little bit more individualized. So each person goes through their own journey versus working as a team, like in our Leaders in Prevention program. And we cover all of those topics and more. So we're really focusing on what are those issues that high school students are dealing with now and will continue to deal with as they move into adulthood. What are the things that they're seeing in their families, at their schools, in their communities, and how do they want to use their strengths and their skills in order to make the best choices for themselves and also help to make change in their communities. So it's a really fantastic week of program for high school students. We did just open registration up, so I'm going to put the webpage here in the chat, and there is a downloadable PDF flyer that you can put up for students. The registration link is there, and of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me or Marissa. We'd love to talk about it more. We're also going to have some Zoom info sessions for that program starting in March. And if anybody has questions, I'm always happy to answer them here too.
Thank you, Mara. I knew I could count on you. Count on to bring it. And while you were talking, there was a mention of a legislative bill that's in the process right now. So I'm going to let Cora talk about that because she had asked about mentioning it to this group. So take it away, Cora.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cora Long. I'm with Stratford County Public Health Network, and I have a micro grant from New Hampshire Charitable Foundation to do some advocacy. So I just wanted to raise folks' attention on a bill. A hearing happened earlier today. It's House Bill 1473, which bans all social and emotional learning in public schools. I did want to let folks know that you can still submit testimony and your position on this bill until midnight tonight. So I'm just going to stick some information in the chat for everyone. You can take a peek at the full text of the bill, and the second link that I provide is a website to New Futures, where it gives you step-by-step instructions on how to submit your position and any testimony that you wish to provide regarding your position on this bill. So I strongly encourage folks that are working with youth or have programs that focus on social emotional learning to go to that site and do your thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Cora. Which then makes me want to ask the youth that are on this, how do you feel about knowing that legislators and all these adults are proposing bills and laws that can impact you now? Like, does that make you feel like you want to be part of the legislative process? You want to get involved? Do you have any feelings about that you want to share?
Oh yeah. We'll share. We have feelings.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, as you could imagine, being teens that are not, I mean, Mia, you're 17 right now,
No, I'm
right?
18.
Oh, she's 18, so she can vote.
Yeah.
But being someone who can't vote with strong opinions on the things that are going on around us in our political climate, it's incredibly frustrating just to see the best interests of youth completely pushed under the bus for what adults in our community think to be our best interests. And I think that it's definitely something that gets you to want to get involved in that legislation, to see the lack of diversity. I mean, in terms of age of the people who are making all of the decisions that will impact members of our generation and future generations. Especially considering, I mean, I don't have that right to vote. So these aren't people that I put into power. These are people who were put into power by the adults around me, potentially adults that won't be around anymore when I'm in my adulthood, making decisions about the emotional health, about the physical health, about the health of the environment that we're going to be living the rest of our lives in. So I think definitely even just being open and honest with your youth about what's happening right now, talking about how your youth can get involved, you know, giving them that option. Because before I joined Youth to Youth, I didn't even know that legislation was something that was for people of my age group, right? And I mean, at this point, I've been in Youth to Youth for like 6 years, but it's just like, I think so many youth just see everything that's happening and have such intense emotions about it, and just feel like there's no avenue to express that. But I think that the way that we make ourselves respected in communities, part of that is going out and testifying. And so I think really raising that awareness and teaching your students how to speak publicly, very, very, very important.
And a quick little plug here. I actually sit on the Governor's Youth Advisory Council on Substance Misuse, and I have friends on the Legislative Youth Council. And if you have youth that really want to be a part of the legislative process, those are a very good way to take that first step. It's grades 9 through 12, and the GIAC is currently accepting applications right now. So I would strongly encourage you to tell your youth to apply to those.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we are definitely, on the GIAC side, we're definitely in need of GIAC members from further north. So North Country schools and groups, really, that's a great opportunity for youth to get involved. We are looking at trying to rotate where those meetings are so that it's not always a long haul for the for those who live up north. But definitely take a look. It's a really great opportunity to have your voice heard at one of the highest levels in New Hampshire government.
And does anybody have any questions or comments they want to share to this panel as we get ready to wind down this conversation? I would like to point out there's been a lot of stuff shared in the chat, so make sure you capture that, and we should be able to share those links as well after the fact.
I was reading the chat and it's really overwhelming to see this. Yeah, this is scary.
Well, and that's why hopefully we can make sure that we're providing the best message we can from what you tell us as youth that you would like us to rally for you as adults. Right.
I'm just going to say, Isabel, if it makes you feel better, I will, with my Seacoast Outright hat kind of on, kind of off, be in front of the State House, being an advocate, and there will be so many people there tomorrow who love you and support you and are so excited to fight on your behalf and alongside you. And we love you for who you are. So just going to throw that out there, and I appreciate y'all, all the youth here who are sharing their stories today, because y'all are going to do great things. You're already doing great things. And I'm so excited to see what you all continue to do.
I agree with you, Jess.
Sorry, Jess, real quick. I am just gonna shoot you my email because I'm a queer person myself, and so I'd really like to get involved with like some of that action in our community, because I feel like there are a lot of safe spaces, and that's amazing, but I'd also love to see more queer activism from the point of view of youth, and so that kind of situation.
I will pitch too. There is I've kind of been on the LGBT side. There's a kind of up and coming LGBT legislative org, but there's also a group called New Hampshire Youth Movement that has been in high schools and in other groups and do a lot of advocacy, not just about LGBT issues, but all sorts of things that youth are interested in. So would definitely encourage folks on the call to look into that too. But yes, definitely send me your email.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's been very informative, fantastic adult and youth panel. I hope people are leaving today with a little bit better sense of how to engage youth in prevention. And I hope our youth that did participate gain some understanding on what adults think about when they're planning prevention activities and strategies. So I want to just thank everybody. I want to definitely thank Candace and Kimberly for offering to facilitate today. And in the chat, we do have something important. It's our evaluation link. And it is a Survey Monkey. It takes exactly 3 minutes to fill out. And it helps us as a planning group to look at what worked well, what can we do better, to plan the next prevention community of practice. So if you're interested in becoming a youth member or a member of our planning group, we ask that you just reach out to myself, and I will put my email address in the chat. And we are always looking for new and great ideas in prevention. So we're gonna definitely hope that we can recruit 1 or 2 of you to come join us. We meet pretty much monthly to help plan some of these communities of practice that take place every other month. I also want to thank you for putting up with me without the English accent that Stephen, our normal facilitator, has. So thanks. And I lost internet like 3 minutes before the meeting. So it all went well, as it should have. And thanks everybody for your time. Please fill out the evaluation. And again, I put my email address in the chat. I definitely want to thank Paul, who's my sort of co-facilitator behind the scenes, for helping to put together the PowerPoint and for keeping me sane through this process. And I just want to thank everybody that came today. So I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting, and I hope everybody has a great Wednesday. Take care of yourself, and thanks so much for being here. Take care. Bye.